What is up everyone, Movie Worm back again with another video, and today is going to be my 31 horror movies you should check out this October. Now my reason for doing this is because I've seen a little bit of talk on social media lately, people putting up their Letterboxd lists of their 31 days of horror, which is people basically watching a horror movie every day for the month of October. It's a traditional thing, a lot of people seem to do it every year. But I've also seen people asking for recommendations, you know, for their lists of what movies they can watch this October. So I've come up with 31 of my own. I think it's a pretty decent list. Now I haven't gone for the too obvious here. I've gone for movies that you've probably heard of, or you may not have heard of actually, but to the casual viewer, they may not have seen. However, I do recommend all the films on this list. Although there are two that I can't really speak for, I'll explain that when I get to them. And it is one obvious one on there, but I couldn't do this list without it. And I'm going to start with that one actually, so we'll get that one straight out of the way there. But like I said, all these movies are definitely worth a go. I mean, you can't really go wrong with them. And I've tried to come up with ones that, when I'm in conversation with, you know, my movie going friends or whatever, they tend to say that they haven't seen these films, so I just thought it'd be a good one to come up with. So there's not going to be your typical Nightmare on Elm Street in there, or, you know, your Hellraisers, Candyman. These are ones that you probably may not have seen, apart from the first one, which I'm going to get on with right away. So of course, first on the list there is Halloween, yes, from 1978 from John Carpenter. How could I do this list without putting this one on? I mean, I watch it every October myself, every Halloween in fact. This is the movie that goes on. Basically, Michael Myers just stalking some babysitters there. The first real slasher, I feel, you know, that followed that formula and created the subgenre, if you like. It's a movie that gets better every time I watch it, and that music just sets it all up right at the start there, doesn't it? Just that spine-tingling John Carpenter score there. So yeah, I had to put Halloween on there, so let's get into some more movies that, you know, you may not have seen here. Now next up, we probably have the most underrated movie on this list, and that is Frailty. I tell everyone this is probably the most underrated film of all time in my opinion, and this is directed and starred in by Bill Paxton, you know, Hudson off Aliens, we all love that guy. And basically, he is a father of two sons who lives on this farmhouse, and he is visited by this angel, and this angel says, you need to do God's work, you need to go out and slay these demons, but these demons are disguised as humans. So he goes home, tells his two sons, and one of them is up for going along with it, he believes him, and the other one thinks he's absolutely batshit crazy, and it becomes this mystery type movie. Whose side are you on? Who do you believe? The ending to this film is absolutely incredible. So I don't want to say too much about it, you just have to go in and give it a shot. We've got a young Matthew McConaughey in there as well. It's something like I'd never seen before. You know, I really enjoy Frailty, and it's probably in my top 100 films of all time. So Frailty, definitely give it a watch this October. Next up, we have another pretty underrated film in my opinion, and that is Hell House LLC. Next to the Blair Witch Project, this is probably my favourite found footage horror movie, and this is basically about a group of students basically, and they take over this haunted hotel, or it's been spoken about to be haunted in the past, and they decide to do it all up and create a tourist attraction for the town there. But on the first opening night, a hell of a lot goes wrong, and like 10 people are killed there, and there's a lot of mystery surrounding. We don't quite know what's happened, and then it goes back and shows these people doing up this hotel, you know, getting it all ready for the opening night, but weird things happening all on camera there. So it's a really creepy film. It's one of the best found footage films out there, and I highly recommend you give this one a go. If you like found footage, you need to check out Hell House LLC. Next up is a killer clown film. Who doesn't like a good killer clown movie? And this is called Terrifier. This is kind of an indie movie, kind of low budget, but you can't really tell it's utilised so well. And this is all about a clown called Art who makes these two girls' lives hell on Halloween night. And it's the whole look of Art that really makes this movie. The faces he pulls, the kills he comes out with. I'm going to let you lot in a little secret here now. This contains my favourite slasher movie kill of all time. Art the Clown is evil to the core, and this movie just shows you why. So If you like your slashers or killer clown movies, you gotta watch Terrifier. Next up is a movie I watched for the first time this year, and that is The Wailing. This is a Korean film, I believe, and this all takes place in a small village in Korea, but this Japanese guy moves in, and as soon as he moves in, he's kind of on the outskirts of the town. A lot of weird things happening. This virus starts plaguing this little town, and people become infected and really sick, and they all believe that this guy might in fact be the devil. I don't want to say too more about this movie, but it's like nothing I've seen before, and there's this ritual scene that is so well done, and I just couldn't take my eyes off it. So it's a really creepy film, something different from Asian cinema like we usually get from them foreign movies. And if you like that sort of thing, give The Wailing a go. It's a really, really well constructed and thought-provoking film. You know, you're thinking about it for days after. So yeah, The Wailing has to be on this list. Next up is probably my favourite zombie film, next to Dawn of the Dead there, and that is Train to Busan, another foreign cinema movie from Asia. And this basically is about a train that departs for the city of Busan, but as this train departs, a zombie outbreak happens and starts to spill onto the train. And it's about these group of characters who have to get to the front of the train where it's safe, but it is so fast paced. It lives up to the title, it moves like a train. The zombies are just absolutely terrifying in this movie. They don't stop, they're relentless. And it's all about human emotion as well, and how humans deal with other humans, how, you know, how some people are just in their own, they're only fighting for themselves, they don't care about other people, and shows the true hearts and the dark souls of humans in this movie. It's not just the zombies here that this film focuses on, but Train to Busan, you know, if you haven't seen this, you gotta give it a go. Next up is a really strange movie, but when I heard the concept, I had to see it. This is called Goodnight Mommy. I think this is a movie from France. Please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments there, but this is about a mum with two sons, and she decides to go and get plastic surgery. And she comes back and she kind of looks like a mummy, you know, hence the title there. But she's got all these bandages around her face and stuff, and they can't really see her. They can only see her eyes and stuff, but she's acting really weird. And they start to think that this might actually not be their real mum. I'm not going to say anything else about this movie, but I think that's enough to get you excited and make you want to watch this one. It's a really, really creepy one, and such a good ending as well. So Goodnight Mummy is one you probably have not seen if you're a casual horror fan, so definitely check this one out. Next up is probably one of the more popular ones on this list, but I love it to death, and that is The People Under the Stairs. One of my favourite Wes Craven movies. This is a home invasion film turned on its head. So basically the people who go into the house are hunted by the homeowners. When they come home, they realise that they are like this crazy family of cannibals and stuff, but there is more to it. There's people living in the walls that they've kidnapped and stuff like that. It really is a mad one. So it's a horror comedy, like I'd say, but there are some disturbing moments in this, especially involving a very, very hot bath. I wince every time I see this. So it's worth it for the mummy and daddy character who, you know, this family who own this home. It's worth it just to see how outlandish and outrageous they are. So People Under the Stairs, if you haven't seen this one by now is the time. There is talk of Jordan Peele bringing another one back to this, to his production company, but we'll have to wait and see. But this one is it's just a really, really strange film, and like I said, home invasion turned on its head there. Next up is a 90s high school horror, if you like. We got a few of them in the 90s, didn't we? With a bit of sci-fi thrown in there as well. So we got a horror sci-fi film here, and this is basically about Josh Hartnett and his group of friends who attend this school. But there's a lot of strange characters, you know. You got the old, you know, the jock, the geek, stuff like that, all having to come together to fight this alien invasion that has taken over the high school. And it starts with the teachers. The teachers are acting really weird and drinking all this water and stuff, and they really have to get to the bottom of it. But I am quite surprised when I hear that people haven't seen this movie. I mean, I thought it was quite a popular one, but apparently it's really, really underrated. I mean, when I was looking it up, it's on a lot of underrated movie lists as well. So if you haven't seen The Faculty, I think it's such a fun movie and one of the best horror movies to come out of the 90s. Next up we have a Kevin Bacon movie called State of Echoes. Now this is about a guy who is just obsessed with digging in his front yard. He's digging so many holes and stuff, and he's convinced that he's going to find something that happened in the house, because he's having these visions and stuff when he goes to sleep, and he knows there's something there, but people in the neighborhood and his wife and stuff are starting to question him, starting to think he's getting a little bit crazy and stuff, and all will be revealed at the end of this film. But I thought this was really interesting, actually. It was, you know, one of them films that just passed me by. I only watched it the first time last year, but I can safe to say that I really enjoyed this one. Kevin Bacon gave a really good performance, so yeah, it's worth it, and it all very constructed well towards its finale. So State of Echoes, yeah, definitely worth a go, I feel. Next up is Summer of '84. This is like a mix of Stranger Things mixed with The Burbs mixed with Disturbia. And this is about a group of young boys in the 80s. A lot of films like to do that lately, don't they? It the remake or the Stranger Things TV show. But this is about them, and one of them feels like he has a murderer next door to him, because there's a lot of murderers happening in the town, and he's convinced that this guy next door is the killer. And it's down to these 4 kids to get to the bottom of it, really. And I love films like this where there's a mysterious thing happening in a neighborhood and stuff, and especially when it's a bit of a coming of age film as well. So honestly, this one was really surprising. I enjoyed the hell out of it, and it's definitely worth a go, especially if you like all those 80s throwbacks as well there. Now we've had a few horror movies that take place at a camp, haven't we? Friday the 13th is the most famous franchise for this, but I do think this next film is better than all of those movies, in all honesty, and that is The Burning. I think this is from 1981, and this is about a caretaker at a camp who has a trick played on him by these teenage campers, and they accidentally burn him, and he comes back a few years later after nearly dying from his injuries and takes revenge. Kind of sounds like Jason Voorhees, doesn't it? But I just think this is done better. The characters are more interesting, and there is a kill in this on a canoe, and like the Terrifier, one of the best slasher kills I have ever seen. It's just like 5 or 10 seconds of absolute mayhem there. But I just feel like this is a really fun movie. I love horror films that take place in these camps. Fear Street Part 2 is my favourite of that trilogy, mainly for that reason. So The Burning, if you like these type of films set in these locations, is definitely one to check out. One of my favourite slashers ever. Next up is a movie that I can't really speak for, like I mentioned at the start of the video, because I haven't seen it. But this is coming out this month here in the UK, and that is on October 15th, and that is Halloween Kills. How could I not put this on the list? You have to watch this October. I mean, a lot of people love the Halloween franchise, don't they? And this is the follow-up to Halloween 2018, which was a follow-up to the original. Yeah, so this is technically the 3rd. I don't know, it's messed up, this franchise, isn't it? But this looks brutal from the trailers. Looks like Michael Myers just going through everyone there, taking no prisoners, and a second trailer has just released, but I don't want to watch it. I want to go into this knowing as less as possible. But yeah, I mean, I'm really excited for this film. I love a good Halloween movie, I love a good slasher film, and this is a modern day one, so why would you not go and see this if you love the Halloween franchise this October? So Halloween Kills has to be on there. Next up is a very strange movie, another French film, I believe, from Gaspar Noé, and this is Climax. This is about a group of dancers who are basically, you know, doing a rehearsal dance. And this opens with the dance, actually. It's all very well constructed. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was a great opening scene. But then they start to have a drink in the hall that they rehearse in, and someone has spiked a punch with LSD, and a lot of these people start to see hallucinatic things, terrifying things actually, and you're kind of like on this journey with them. You feel like you've drank the punch as well, because there's a lot of one-shot views, and this camera is just going around the party filming these people going off their heads. And it's a really clever film. I mean, I wouldn't say it's one of the more scarier ones on this list, but it's definitely one way of checking out. It's more of a horror drama, if you like. Yeah, but Climax is a very clever movie. Definitely worth giving a go. Next up is a film from Mike Flanagan, who is a very divisive director for me. I did not like The Haunting of Hill House, what he done. I thought Doctor Sleep was okay, but Oculus, for me, is his best movie. This got overlooked at the box office because another big film came out at the same time as it, and everyone seemed to go and see that one. But wow, I was really, really impressed by this. It stars Karen Gillan, who has to find the mystery of this mirror. And this mirror, everywhere it goes, it's been around for hundreds of years. Death just follows it. I mean, it'll go into a family's home and, you know, the father or something will just kill the whole family, or it'll go to an art gallery and weird things happen there. And she really, really wants to get to the bottom of it. It's a really well done movie, really well shot, great performances. Like I said, Mike Flanagan's best movie for me. I really think he's done a good job of this, and one that you may have missed. You might just look at this and go, oh, this looks like another stupid movie that no one's heard of, but no, it's a really, really good film. So Oculus, definitely get that on your list. Next up is It Follows. Now, someone just took the idea of an STD here and took it to another 100 levels. This is basically about a paranormal entity, I think is the best way of putting it, that just follows you and just kills you unless you have sex with someone and pass the curse on. It's gonna come and get you. But this entity can take all these forms. I mean, there's one moment where it's this old woman just walking towards this girl who it's after and stuff. It was so creepy. And then it'll take the form of a different human being and just come after them. And really, honestly, it's just all about passing this thing on, so it doesn't come after them. It sounds ridiculous, it really does, but it's not. It's one of the best horror films I've seen in the past 10 years. Trust me. So It Follows, definitely worth giving this one a go. Like nothing you've seen before if you haven't seen this one yet. Probably one of the more popular films on this list, and this is an Australian movie, Wolf Creek. This is basically about a bunch of backpackers whose car runs into a bit of trouble, and they are helped by this guy called Mick Taylor. What do you think's gonna happen next? Yes, this is all based on a true story, and it's kind of brutal. I mean, the villain in this movie is just horrific. He is just such a bad person. He really is. You really feel for these characters as well. You want them to escape this because it's just really not fair on them whatsoever. But there is a sequel as well, which isn't bad. Wolf Creek, if you haven't seen this yet, definitely worth a go. Next up, another bit of a popular one on this list, and that is Sinister. Now, this is the last film that actually really scared me. I'm not easily scared by films, but I just felt a sense of dread watching this one. This is about Ethan Hawke and his family who move into this home, and Ethan Hawke finds these tapes in the attic, and these tapes contain videos of all the past families who've lived in this house being murdered by this certain individual, and they are not nice to watch whatsoever. Every time one of these tapes came on the TV screen in the movie, I didn't like it. I just felt so uneasy, and it really did, you know, creep me out in so many ways. This is one of the best modern horror movies I've seen in the past 20 years, if you like. If you haven't seen Sinister by now, now is the time. Next up is one of the newest movies on this list, and that is James Wan's Malignant. Now, I put this on the list because you may not have seen it yet. It's only been out for here for a couple of weeks in the UK, but it is, it's fair to say, a Marmite film, but I really enjoyed this one. I couldn't stop thinking about it all week. It was a great concept, like I've never really heard of before. I don't really want to explain too much about it, but basically, it's just this woman who's having these visions, and the more she uncovers, the more her world starts to really turn bad. But when everything is revealed about on the hour mark, I just thought it was a really clever concept, and what ensues in the third act is absolutely bonkers. Some of the best scenes I've seen in a horror movie this year. I really enjoyed this movie. It's one of my highest ranked films of the year. You've got to give this a go. You really have. Either you hate it, at least you've given it a go. It's something new, something fresh. I really enjoyed the hell out of this one. I thought Annabelle Willock was fantastic in this movie. So Malignant, definitely worth a go. Next up is another Asian cinema movie, and this is Audition. This has been out for quite some time now, and this is basically about a rich, wealthy businessman who wants a wife and he makes these women audition to be his wife. Can you believe it? And it's kind of a romantic movie, if you like, kind of a drama, and then it just goes and turns on its head. I mean, you don't really understand what the hell has just happened, but all that third act, or about halfway through the film, this turns into pure horror. There's some really disturbing scenes to watch. It's one that makes you just clench your fists, put it that way. But Audition, if you haven't seen it, one of the more clever ones on this list. Like most of the Asian horror is, they give you something a little bit different, don't they? Next up is Incident in a Ghostland. This is one of the newer films on this list as well. I think this is from 2017-18. And this is basically about a young girl who has a traumatic episode when she was younger and how she's dealing with it when she's older. But the movie goes back and forth, and when it all comes together at the end, I just thought it was really well done. Really, well constructed, if you like. But there are some scenes in this film that are really terrifying to watch, especially at the start of the movie. I mean, when she's going back to what happened to her when she was a child, to her mother and her sister as well. It's really weird and just horrifying, to be honest. So Incident in a Ghostland is one that may have gone under your radar. Definitely worth a go. Next up, another new one that came out this year, and that is Wrong Turn Remake. If you haven't checked this one out yet, I actually honestly feel that it was better than the original Wrong Turn, only by a little bit, but I just enjoyed it a little bit more. I like the new direction they went in. You think it's gonna just be a carbon copy, but no, they do something totally different here, and I thought it was a really clever movie. Kind of a slasher, if you like, but something more. I thought it had a good lead protagonist. The ending was brilliant. I mean, I thought, oh, is it really going to end this way? And then something happens and I was like, wow, that ending just went from here to there. So yeah, I really enjoyed Wrong Turn. I know there's a few people out there who don't really like this one, but the majority seem to really like it. I think it's one of the best horror remakes that's been done. So Wrong Turn 2021, that one is going on this list. Next up is Roadkill, a movie I watched for the first time this year, and this stars Paul Walker, and who sadly died now, of course, but I really enjoyed him in this movie. This is basically about him going to pick his brother up. His brother is the worst part of this movie, by the way. He's so annoying, but don't let that put you off. And they basically get a radio call from a truck driver, and they pretend that they're a woman by doing this girl's voice and stuff, and say they want to go and meet him and play a little trick on him. But this driver doesn't like practical jokes and absolutely terrorizes these two, and they go and pick up this girl as well, who they're friends with. So there is actually three main characters, but this truck driver just will not leave them alone and makes their life a living hell. So if you like them on the road type horror movies, and I've got another one coming up soon, Roadkill. It's one of them that is just an easy 90 minutes to watch, but a fun one at that. So decent horror thriller there. Next up is You're Next. This is another home invasion film from a group of people with these animal masks on who decide to raid this home where a party's happening. They've set traps around the house and everything, and there is some really gruesome deaths that ensue. But these people have not counted on Shani Vision's character Erin fighting back, and she is just one awesome protagonist in this movie. She was fucking incredible. So if you want to see a good home invasion movie with someone fighting back against the attackers, You're Next should be on this list, and it's one of the best modern horror movies, I believe, from the past 10-20 years. I really enjoyed this one. You're Next, definitely get that on your list. Next up is Orphan. Now this is basically just about a family who already have a son, and they decide to take in this girl and adopt her as their daughter. But things start to happen around the house that don't usually happen. There's a lot of mysterious goings on, and there is an ending here that reveals what the hell has happened, and it is something to behold, put it that way. We are getting an Orphan 2, actually. There is a sequel in the works, so it just shows how many people actually do like this film. And I think it's a pretty underrated horror. I mean, it's starting to gain a bit of popularity over the years, of course, but I know there's going to be people who are watching this who haven't seen this, so definitely give Orphan a go. Next up is Happy Death Day. Now, this is Groundhog Day as a horror film, if you like. We've seen this concept done many times before, and this is about a young teenage girl in high school, and she is killed at the end of the day by a killer plaguing the school. But she wakes up on the same day, of course, and gets to start it all over again. But the more she gets killed, the more she starts to learn and uncover what is happening to her, and she's trying to find out who is actually gonna kill her. So it's a good mystery film with the reveal at the end, of course, but it's one of them you can just sit back and relax to, not take it too seriously, and just have fun with. The sequel isn't bad either, but that is definitely more comedy, adventure, sci-fi, if you like. This is definitely more just plain horror comedy. So Happy Death Day, decent movie. Now look away if you're squeamish, because this is definitely the most disturbing movie on this entire list, and that is Martyrs, a French movie that came out, I think it was in 2007 or 2008, and you gotta prepare yourself for this one. I don't recommend this to everyone who is watching this if you're squeamish. So this is basically about a girl who is abused and tortured when she was a kid, and she comes back to try and find out what the hell has happened to her. But there is way more to that in this movie. It's so well unraveled and stuff, and I just thought it was a really cleverly done film. But there are some very shocking scenes in this film, so beware of that going in, but definitely one of the more clever ones on this list. So Martyrs, if you're up for a bit more pump and a bit more, you know, a bit more grit, give this one a go, but be warned there. Next up is another movie I have never seen because it's coming out at the end of the month, and this is Last Night in Soho. This is Edgar Wright's new movie, and it looks absolutely brilliant from the trailers, doesn't it? So this and Halloween Kills are the only two films I have not seen on this list, but I do think they're worth putting on there because these are the two big horror releases of the month, of course. And I don't know too much about the synopsis here. I just know it's about this young girl who goes to Soho and she can transport to the 60s somehow. Doesn't explain why, but there's this other character who she kind of sees. I don't know if it's herself or anything, but she's played by Anya Taylor-Joy, and that's enough to get me to go to the cinema. Anya Taylor-Joy is in this film. That's enough for me. You know, not including the Edgar Wright, how good of a director he is, or how amazing this movie looks on top of that as well. So yeah, I'm really excited for this one. I'll definitely be doing a full review of the channel on this movie, but yeah, there's a second trailer out, but I don't want to go near it. I'm just gonna go in knowing what I know now, which isn't much, and hopefully I'm blown away. So Last Night in Soho, definitely get to cinemas to see this one. Next up is one of my favourite horror movies of all time, I think, and I had to put it on this list because there's a few people I know who haven't seen this one, and that is The Hitcher, not the remake with Sean Bean, the one from the 80s with Rutger Hauer. Now, wow, this film is so tense. John Ryder, the villain in this film, played by Rutger Hauer, is just absolutely relentless. He does not stop. It's basically about this young kid who picks him up to do him a favour, but John Ryder doesn't care about that and makes his life a living hell. It's kind of like that movie Roadkill, but done in such a better way. I love John Ryder as a villain. He is just amazing in this movie. It's my favourite Rutger Hauer performance. But some of the stuff that ensues for this young kid on this motorway is horrific. You really feel bad for the guy because he's just getting terrorised left, right and centre. I really love this film to death, and like I said, it's one of my favourite horror films of all time, so The Hitcher is on this list. Next up we have another killer clown movie, and this is called Clown, believe it or not. Now this is one that may have gone on the radar for a lot of people, but basically this is about a young kid whose mum and dad hire a clown for him, and the clown can't show up and really let the kid down, and all the kids are waiting for the clown at the party. So his dad decides to get this clown outfit. I think it's from this antique shop or something like that. And he decides to dress up as the clown for his son, so his son isn't let down. But he can't seem to get this clown suit off him. It sort of attaches itself to his skin, and he starts to become this demonic clown over time. And we do find out a lot of history about the first clown that happened, and it's kind of this clown demon that's sort of in this suit and stuff. But I thought all that backstory was really interesting actually. But I thought this was a really underrated movie and one of my favourite killer clown films out there now, so this one's definitely worth a go if you like killer clown films. And last up on the list we have a Stephen King movie, and this is called Gerald's Game. This was a Netflix original, I believe, and this is about a couple who want to spice up their sex life a little bit there. So they decide to go and rent this cabin in the middle of nowhere, and Gerald decides to tie up his wife, and while she's tied to the bed, he has a heart attack and dies. And she is trapped in the middle of nowhere, but there is more to it than that. A certain stranger might be coming to visit the house at times. I'm not going to say any more than that, but there were some really scary scenes in this movie for me. And it sort of goes back into their lives as well, what's happened before this and stuff. I thought this was a really clever film, one of my favourite Netflix originals and one of my favourite Stephen King films as well, so definitely check out Gerald's Game. I thought it was really well done actually, and I've heard it's one of his best books, but I thought this was one of the best adaptations of his, to be honest. Okay guys, I hope you all enjoyed this 31 Days of Horror list, recommended by myself. There's definitely going to be 2 on this list, and I'm going to be watching this October, Halloween Kills and Last Night in Soho, but I'll probably be definitely watching a few more of them as well. The original Halloween, of course, on Halloween night, why not? But is there any movies that you recommend to me that I may have not have seen, or recommend to other people in the comments? Leave it down below. I'll reply to every single one of you, I promise. I always try to reply to everybody. And are you going to be watching any of these films? What do you think of these movies that I talked about here? Have you seen them? Have you not seen them? Let me know and let's get a discussion going. I'm sorry I couldn't spend too long on each title here, but there's 31 of these motherfuckers. I gotta get through them kind of quick. Now, if you enjoyed this video, by the way, I have done a horror movie collection a few months ago now. I'll leave it down below. I talk about over 200 of these horror movies that are in my collection behind me there. So if you want to see me talk more horror, that'll be down below, along with a few horror revisited episodes where I talk about all the horror movies and review them. They'll all be down below as well. So thank you so much everyone. Like I said, leave it in the comments what you think of these movies, what are your recommendations, what are you watching this October, and we'll get a discussion going. Reply to every single one of you, I promise. Take it all easy guys, and have a great October.